What's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1948 Plymouth Special Deluxe. Up front is a 5.7 liter V8 and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Plymouth because I don't drive many 40s cars here on the channel. I've actually only driven 2 and both were Willys Jeeps. Because of World War II, there weren't many cars built in this era. We were focusing on the war effort, and so it is quite the special treat to be driving this Plymouth here today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle to me and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that V8 under the hood. Well, it is not the original engine. It has been swapped out just for longevity's sake and for parts availability. What used to be under the hood was a flathead inline 6, and that just doesn't really cut the modern mustard. Now, the engine was put in by the previous owner to the current owner, so we don't know a whole lot about the swap. Like I said, paired to it is an automatic 4-speed, again, non-original to this vehicle, but everything else is. So past those two things, the engine and transmission, this is all 48 Plymouth, baby, and I'm excited to dig into it with you today. Of course, the Plymouth is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to actually drive the 48 Plymouth? Well, drivetrain out of the way, because that's not how this would normally drive. It's very interesting. It's a lot more poignant and a lot more dedicated in its actions than the 1930s. The 1930s, you could turn the wheel half a turn and nothing really happens. They're very covered wagon with a motor feeling. Well, here in 1948, that's not the case at all. This actually drives like a car, and I know that might sound weird, but my 1931 Ford Model A does not drive like a car. It drives like a tractor that drank a Red Bull. So it's really interesting to me, sort of World War II is that breakup where we somehow just learned magically how to make modern cars. I know it wasn't magically. I know there's a lot of engineers doing a lot of things, but it's really, really interesting to see that. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of gauges. Off to the left is my battery voltage and coolant temperature. In the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my oil pressure and fuel. The steering wheel is rather big, no power steering back in the day. It has the nice Plymouth logo on it too. And it has the horn ring. Down by my left knee, I do have this little pull-out vent. There's a couple of different air vents that will let air into the cabin because there was no air conditioning in this era. Actually, the next year air conditioning was debuted, but it didn't become mainstream for decades after. But on the door, I do have a little smoker's window that I can vent out, little handle, and my crank for the window. Moving into the center, I get a really nice Plymouth badge, as well as some vents and switches, and I do have some very basic climate controls for defrost and heater fan, and my turnkey for the ignition is actually found here in the center back in 1948. Kind of an interesting little quirk that we don't see anymore. Down on the floor, this is the aftermarket shifter for that 4-speed automatic that's been swapped into it. So this is not the factory shifter. This normally was a 3-on-the-tree vehicle, so kind of unique to see that. Now, we don't have any cup holders in the 48 Plymouth because we were focused on other things in this country, like those pesky Germans we just beat. So unfortunately, but predictably, it fails the big friggin' bottle test. Now, the seats are this really nice red velour material. I absolutely love them. They're very, very comfortable. I only get lap belts, which have been added after the fact. This originally came with no seat belts at all. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, first of all, I do want to show off that the rear doors open backwards. They are suicide doors, but getting in the back of a 48 Plymouth, this is super, super cool. Super comfy. I do have a little ashtray back here. And of course, the owner does have some Americana back here, which you gotta have. But I absolutely love it back here. So comfortable. And I could just imagine, you know, living life post-war back here. I mean, that's so exciting to me. Not a whole lot to talk about in terms of amenities and features, but it's comfy, it's cool, and here's what it looks like. Let's hop out, we'll take a quick look at the trunk, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, around the back of the Plymouth, pull it like that, open it up, and there is the trunk of a 48 Plymouth. Now, The biggest thing is that this car has a trunk, because in the 1930s, the beginning of the 1930s, which is where my knowledge stops, there weren't trunks. It was actually a physical box that was bolted to the back of your car. This is actually an integrated trunk, which is very, very cool and became popular throughout the late 1930s. So that's my first time dealing with that, which is very, very special. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is the original color I love. Let me reiterate that. I love, love, love the look of this Plymouth. I think it's so special and so unique. And when I look at this car, it just takes me back to a bygone era that I was never alive for. But post-World War II America just seems like such this beautiful time, not only with our soldiers coming back victorious, but there was a big economic boom. Obviously, the baby boomers, Hollywood, the city of dreams was becoming this place to move to, that the stars lived in glamour. It was this sort of unbeatable era, and yet driving one of these cars and looking at it, that's all I can think about. Just how amazingly wonderful our country was, how proud this automobile is. So let's get on to my final thoughts. This is my final thoughts. This car is so proud and glorious without being brash and in your face. One could say that the brand new Hummer EV is glorious and magnificent in its own right, but that one brags. This car doesn't brag. This car has nothing to prove, and yet it still gets all of that love and attention. And that's what's so wonderful. Driving this car, to me, I'm not thinking about posting it on social media. I'm not trying to figure out where I'm gonna get a poke bowl for lunch. I'm not in the modern era when I'm in this car. I'm back in the 40s. I'm victorious. I'm proud of my country and my fellow man. I hug thy neighbor. And sure, maybe those things weren't true. I didn't live through the 1940s. But driving this car certainly makes me feel that way. And that to me is special enough. I love this car, I love this era, and you just can't frown behind the wheel of a 1948 Plymouth. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Steve for bringing this Plymouth out to me for a review. He's been wonderful to work with, very knowledgeable about the vehicle, and just for giving me the opportunity to drive another car from the 40s, something I've so seldomly done. Steve has allowed me to do, and he is just wonderful for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.